Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another Rangers Review special as we delve into Russell Martin's time at Swansea City. If you watched the video nearly a fortnight ago when we spoke to the Southampton journalist, gave us some insight into his time with the Saints, but I thought it would be useful to hear how he got on prior to that. And it brings me great joy to say that we're joined by Carwyn, who contributes to Only Swans, which is... covers a number of social media channels covering the mighty Swansea City, and he's here to give us some insight. Carwyn, how's it going?
Yeah, it's great. Pleasure to be here, mate.
Yeah, good to have you on. Before we get stuck in to Russell Martin and his time with you boys, how did you get on last season? Is there a bit of optimism around the fan base about the upcoming season? What you guys can do?
Well, we had a bit of a rough season last season. Obviously, we sacked our manager, but we're looking pretty good now, to be honest. I think there's a real buzz about the place. We've got a lot of new people in the building, so it's looking very promising, yeah.
And you've got a guy who's in caretaker charge, Alan Sheen. He's been given the sort of managerial reins. What's it? Do you fancy him to do the business?
He actually managed at our charity match a month ago, so I absolutely love him. Yeah, I think he'll do a good job.
Yeah. Good place, Swansea. I've covered a couple of games down there in the past, and I always made very welcome. I always remember they put a good spread on for the press boys down there. What I remember, they had cake and things on and all sorts of stuff. So, yeah, good old club down there. In terms of Russell Martin, of course, he was with you boys for a couple of seasons, joined 2021 and left in the summer of 2023 to join Southampton, Carwyn. When he initially joined, he took over, of course, from Steve Cooper, wasn't it? You came mightily close to getting up to back up into the Premier League and just fell short via the playoffs. What was the sort of feeling amongst the fans when he was appointed, because he came from MK Dons at the time?
I think Russell Martin was always sort of dealt a very tough hand to begin with. We, despite being that playoff pushing team, we obviously got to the final and were defeated by Brentford. Half that squad was gone. We were very loan heavy in that season. By the time Russ came, we had pretty much a completely different side. I think the first game of the season we played Blackburn and we had maybe 4 of the same players from that playoff final. 3. It was very low.
Yeah, and the style of football I think Steve Cooper's a pretty underrated coach, to be honest. But did the style of play differ much between the two coaches?
Yeah, they are 2 very different managers. I think Steve Cooper's much more pragmatic. He'll look for a win any way he can, whereas Russell Martin is, hyper possession. He's pure possess the ball, which suits us as a club, to be honest. And I think it always did. So a lot of people were very excited when he came in.
Yeah, and of course, first season under him, you finished at 15th, but it was obviously not as good as the previous campaign. But was that down, as you mentioned there, a number of players that left the building, and it was a bit of a rebuild job?
Yeah, he had a very threadbare squad as well. I think that we had a lad called Cameron Congreve, who's my age, so he was 18 at the time when Russ was managing that season, who played 15 games. And he was nowhere near ready to be playing. We were just using any option we could, to be honest. Yeah.
See your style of play. As you touched on there, very possession heavy. He likes to be dominant on the ball. Did that take a wee while for the players and for the players that he brought in to acclimatise to that? Or was it a sort of, did you see that take effect almost immediately?
Yeah, there was quite a few calamities. There's a lot of players we had in that squad who were just, completely unable to play the style. Ryan Bennett was a prime example of that, like a 34-year-old proper British centre-half who just couldn't play out from the back. So, we did have a lot of moments we just conceded goals we should have never been conceding. But yeah, I think once we got more into the second season of Russell Martin, you could see that we got a bit more used to playing that way.
You mentioned there a few calamities. Is that it does like to play out from the back? Was it, I guess, a few hear him, scare him moments? Some of the goals that you were conceding, were they cheap goals, perhaps, just giving away possession?
Ridiculously cheap.
Play that way. Yeah.
We conceded some terrible goals. absolutely.
Wow. One of the criticisms when I spoke to the Southampton journalist, they said that he can't organise a defence. How was his defensive record with you boys when he was there?
I'd agree with that, yeah. Look, I loved Russell Martin. Like, I was dying on the hill for Russell Martin when many weren't, as Swansea City. But I think it's undeniable when you look back on it that, our defensive record was shocking. I think we had one of the worst defenses in the league, but at the same time, we had one of the best attacks in the league. So, it swings both ways.
Yeah, I was going to say that. What was it that sort of what was it that excited you about his style of play, and what could the Rangers fans potentially get excited by?
Well, Swansea City is sort of known for possession football. It's our way, the Swansea way. I think it's all people talk about constantly. Whenever we're appointing a manager, it's always, are they Swansea way? Whatever.
Do you think that, sorry to jump in there, Carwyn, does that stem from Brendan Rodgers' time there, or was it pre?
Well, it started with Martinez, but Brendan Rodgers, massive part of that.
Yeah, carry on.
Yeah. But I think, he's had, 6-7 months out the game now. I think if he's refined his style slightly, maybe focused more on the defensive element, because that Southampton journalist was right. He definitely isn't very good at organising the defence. I think Rangers fans have every reason to be excited about Russell Martin.
Yeah, his second season was slightly better. A mid-table finish in the Championship, 10th, I think. Swansea finished. Was that a better season in the main from his initial campaign?
Well, it's a very interesting season, that one, because we almost made the playoffs despite a period in December to March where we only won 3 games in 23. In January, we signed 0 players, and we were playing players anywhere. Joel Latibodia, who is naturally a centre-half, was playing wing-back for us. But yeah, I think that season just sums up that he's clearly got ability as a manager. He clearly knows what he's doing, and that's what made us also excited about him. I think with one more season, if he hadn't gone to Southampton, we could have been in the playoffs. We could have seen, the fruits of what we were working for 2 seasons.
Interesting. And so I guess it takes a bit of time. Rangers fans, sort of maybe a word of warning or a bit of advice if they're expecting too much too soon. It maybe takes a bit of time for him to put his own stamp on teams, do you reckon?
Yeah, it takes a lot, and it comes with a lot of cons. I'd say that, for those first sort of 3 to 4 months, it's almost insufferable. I think, for a lot of especially older fans, I think they're going to be, pulling their own teeth out watching some of the stuff you'll see. But when it gets to the point of 6-7 months in, I think, it becomes enjoyable.
Is it important to have a goalkeeper that's good with his feet as well to play this style, Carwyn? The goalkeeper that Swansea had was capable of playing that style of play?
Well, we had Andy Fisher, who played for St Johnstone, was it last season, I think?
Yeah.
And I think we were always sort of looking for a keeper who could play with his feet. I think we started with Stephen Bender, who could not play with his feet. That caused issues again. It all stems back to this playing out from the back, the calamities that could come with it, sort of thing. It's very important that he is a keeper who can play with his feet. Yeah.
And in terms of formation and that sort of thing, is he someone that's pretty rigid in his formation, or did you see little tweaks during his time there?
With us, we mostly played a 5-2-2-1 to hyper possess. It was to, as I said, hold complete control over the ball and the tempo of the game. No rushing, nothing in the air. The wing backs would usually sit high on the attack and try to overload in the final third. The 2 in midfield go really deep. We had Matt Grimes, so he would sometimes drop into the centre back position sort of thing and claim the ball and try bring it up. One sort of acts as like a box to box, and the other is more static and sweeps. And then he doesn't play with wingers really. He plays with 2 10s. So we had Joel Perreault and then Jamie Patterson in them, and the 10 sort of were free to roam, and then the striker needed to pin defenses back to give the space for the 10s.
Interesting.
So it's an interesting style.
Is his fullbacks important then in terms of if he doesn't play without and out wingers? Is it important that they get up and down the park?
Yeah, massively. They're really important, and that was one of our issues, was that we had Joel Latibodia playing there, who was a centre half. But the wing backs, they're really important because they have to try overload in the final third. We had Ryan Manning on the left, who, he had a complete transformation under Russell Martin. He was a pretty average player. He barely played under Steve Cooper, but then in the second season under Russell Martin, he turned into an unbelievable wing back.
Yeah, interesting. You mentioned there a player. Did he improve many players during his time there? I've heard that he's very good in terms of man management, but in terms of player development, Carwyn, was he good at
that? Yeah, quite a few. I mean, we saw Joel Pirot come from barely ever playing a senior game to being a 20-goal a season striker, and obviously he's just taken Leeds to the Premier League, being their top scorer. Flynn Downs, who you're linked to. He came from Ipswich. He had a lot of issues. I think he was thrown into their under-21s or something after being their captain. He came to us. He was phenomenal, and he was gone within a season. Ryan Manning, as I said, Ryan Manning turned into an unbelievable player. And then Ben Cabango, who's currently our captain. I mean, he could barely trap a ball before us. Now he's one of the most progressive centre-backs in the league.
Yeah. You mentioned there you were well on board with his style of play and what have you, but expectation-wise for Swansea when Russell was there, I know in his press conference at Rangers he said he wasn't first choice in any of the teams he's gone into at that point, but he sort of did better than the expectation levels were at the clubs. Did he do that, or did he fail somewhat for you?
I'd say he definitely did that. If, contextually with his time at the club, he had a lot of issues in terms of our former owners were, all over the shop. We probably needed about 4 or 5 players in that January I mentioned. We signed 0. So, he had a lot to work with. He had so little to actually work with and so much to do. So I'd say he definitely exceeded expectations for us.
Yeah. In terms of the derby games, he won the lot, didn't he, against Cardiff?
All 4, yeah.
Yeah.
All 4, yeah.
Yeah. So he must have a special place in the hearts of you guys for winning those games. You won them quite convincingly, pretty much the lot of them, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I think that's it. He's given us some of my favourite days supporting the club, and probably a lot of fans. No team had done the double in 112 years. Or it was 110 at the time, and then he did the double, then he did it again, and we are still the only team to do it. So
yeah, wow, that's nuts. In terms of his relationship with the media, press conferences and all that, Carwyn, was he pretty good? Or I've heard that when things got a bit tough at Southampton, he could be a bit prickly at times. What was he like?
That was pretty similar. Yeah, I think he's quite an honest man, and I think he has a lot of pride in himself. So, when the going gets tough, he'll say it as it is, to be honest. I don't think that's a bad thing. A lot of the Southampton journalists seem to sort of villainize him and make it a big issue. But when I saw him doing it at Swansea, I agreed, because some of the things, like you see it in football all the time. Some of the things managers get asked, some of the things they get blamed for, it's ridiculous. But he's willing to, he wears his heart on his sleeve, and he'll say as it is.
Yeah. When he went to Southampton, what was the general feeling amongst the Swans fans? Were they disappointed to see him go? Because Southampton, I think they just came down from the Premier League at the time they appointed him.
I'd say it was very 50-50, because I think Russ is one of those managers who will always divide opinions. People, you either love him or you hate him. There's no in between, really.
Yeah.
So I think that people like me were gutted to see him go. As I said, I personally think he had such a good bond with our club, with our fans, with the city as a whole, to be honest. And he really bought into what it meant to be, from Swansea and everything. But other people, especially older fans, were probably buzzing to see him go.
Yeah, I can imagine. Were you surprised how it went for him at Southampton? I mean, got them up, play it via the playoffs, and then the Premier League was a disaster.
I don't think that shocked me at all, to be honest. I think the Premier League was one step too far for him, a bit too soon. I think As I said it earlier, to be honest, if he's, in these few months out, if he comes to Rangers and refines his style, then he could easily be a success. But it doesn't shock me because, he was so far off. Like the way he plays, the way he played at us, you could tell he was never going to work in the Premier League.
Yeah. And then that leads me on the move to Rangers. Carwyn, was that a surprise to see him end up at Ibrox? And do you think he could be a success at Rangers, where they will have a lot of the ball at Rangers, but they've been some way behind Celtic, the intensity and everything that comes with being a Rangers player and manager, if you like. Do you think he's able to deal with that and can get Rangers back on top, do you reckon?
To be fair, I think it was a massive surprise because I think Russell Martin is the complete opposite of your club. In every sense, in his beliefs, in his football. I don't think Russell Martin suits Rangers whatsoever. And I think I've seen a lot of Rangers fans agree with that sentiment on Twitter the last few weeks.
Yeah.
But I think success for Rangers is obviously first place. And I don't know if you can achieve that straight away, especially how Celtic look at the moment. Obviously, you have our most successful manager of all time. Celtic do. So, that'll be interesting. But at Swansea, I sort of saw him as a checkbook manager without a checkbook. He needs very specific pieces to be a success. If he gets them, then I think the sky is the limit.
Yeah, interesting. Well, not exactly a glowing recommendation, that's for sure, but it sort of ties in with the Southampton journalist we had on as well. I think it caught many supporters, including me, by surprise when he won the race to become the new head coach. But the proof will be in the pudding, I guess. And you don't get patience at Rangers. That's the thing that concerns me. He's going to have to try and hit the ground running, I'd imagine. So, it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. It's been brilliant having you on, Carwyn. If people want to learn more about your great club, how can they find you?
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, anything. Just only Swans.
Yeah, I'll bung the link in the description as well. It's been brilliant having you on. Thank you very much. All the best for the upcoming season.
Thanks a lot. See you in a bit.
There you go, folks. Some great insight there into Russell Martin and his time at Swansea. We hope you enjoyed that. And keep your eyes peeled for any more. There will be no breaking news videos this afternoon, I doubt. But make sure you're subscribed to the channel and also to the website to keep up to date with all things coming out of Ibrox. Until then, bye for now.